Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lauren DeWall. I'm a market consultant with New Book. I've been with New Book for just over 2 years now, and I'm based in Adelaide. And I'm really excited to present this webinar today, which is what travelers want in 2025, Elevate Your Listings with Vrbo. So we're really excited to be here with Vrbo today to talk about something that is on every host or property owner's mind, and that is just how to get more bookings, how to optimize your existing bookings. The travel landscape is always shifting, and with new trends and traveler expectations, it can be tough to keep up. But don't worry, we're here to help you navigate it. So today we'll be diving into the latest data from Vrbo to understand what today's travelers are looking for, and more importantly, how you can use that information to fine tune your listing and get ahead of the competition. So whether you're a seasoned host already listed on Vrbo or just getting started or thinking about listing on Vrbo, this webinar is packed with practical tips and insights that you can start using right away. So before I introduce our special guest, just a little bit of housekeeping. If there's any questions throughout the webinar, you can feel free to pop them into the chat. We will try to answer questions as we go, or we might save some questions for the end. There will be time at the end as well for more questions, and we can go a little bit longer on those on that Q&A. Now, throughout the webinar, I'll be using campground inclusive terminology. So you might hear me referred to campgrounds, properties, units, sites. All of that is meant to be inclusive with whatever type of property you own. So if it doesn't refer to what you own or where you work, then just keep in mind we are being inclusive. The content from today will be shared on YouTube and the knowledge base afterwards. You can access it or share it with your friends or staff. And what you can expect from this webinar, first, just learning more about Vrbo, what they do. There'll be some helpful tips and tricks for using Vrbo, and just some great insight and data, like I mentioned. So with all that being said, I'm very excited to introduce our special guest, Toby Scotts, who is the AU and NZ Enterprise Team Manager at Vrbo. Welcome, Toby.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you everyone for joining. And also thank you to everyone at New Book that helped to instigate this webinar and set it up and host it. Pleasure to be here. So as far as introducing, I may as well whilst I have the camera. I'll cover off a couple of things. I know that there will be some people on this webinar that already work with Vrbo and have an understanding of how it all works. But there'll be others that might be a little bit confused because we do have multiple brands and the structure is a bit different to some other online travel agencies. And so I guess if I start with who's Vrbo. So Vrbo is the vacation rental or holiday rental arm of Expedia Group. We do sit under the Expedia Group banner, but there are two technology stacks under Expedia. And so there is the Expedia side of the business, which is catering to hotels, but then also has your airlines, activities, car hire, etc. And then there's a separate technology stack, which is designed specifically for holiday rentals. And again, when I my terminology, when I say holiday rentals or vacation rentals or VR, it does refer to really any sort of accommodation that is fully self-contained. That's the sort of properties that we are marketing and really need to have on our platform. And the Expedia side of the business does everything else. And then so in this region, it gets a little bit confusing because we have some local brands that have been in the market for a very long time. So while the back-end technology is Vrbo, the traveler facing site, so where travelers will generally be finding your properties when you're listed on Vrbo, would be Stays in Australia. But we also have Book a Batch in New Zealand, which just like Stays has been around for over 20 years. And they're I get what we call the champion brands that we market to travelers. So you may be getting travelers coming from all sorts of different websites. But generally speaking, if you're within Australia or within New Zealand, it'd be Stays and Book a Batch. But we also have other sites across the world. There's Vrbo everywhere around the world. And there's also different sites like Vrbo Direct in Germany and Abritel in France. And so travelers booking in those countries will be booking your properties. And so it gets a little bit confusing sometimes, though, if you're thinking that you're just connected to Vrbo, but you're getting these bookings from all these other different websites. So that's how it works. And we also actually do push your listings across to the Expedia websites if they're instantly bookable. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. Regarding who I am, so I'm part of what we call our partner success team. So our partner success team is essentially our account management function, and we're responsible for working with all of our the hosts that work with us. On optimization. So that's really all about how we can get people that come to our site to actually book on your listing. So it'll be all sorts of different things, which we'll go into detail in a moment.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that context, Toby. I mentioned to you, I've been a Vrbo customer for many years. So I'm really excited to pick your brain and learn more about how it all works. So to jump right in, what is currently shaping traveler decision making and how should accommodation providers be thinking about this in 2025?
So the first thing that I'll refer to is out of research that we do via a survey every year. It's called our Traveller Value Index report. And so there's all sorts of insights that we get out of this. And one of the things that's been very clear in the last one that we did was that people are looking for something authentic. And by authentic, I mean, whether it's not inundated with tourists already, and so they're after things that are more culturally rich or that haven't been done 1,000 times by everyone. Sometimes it's, just outside of the popular areas where people have been going for years and years. And so as these areas start to expand, there's opportunities for hosts to start looking at, do you want to start acquiring in other areas that are maybe just outside of places like Byron Bay or Noosa, for example. So we're starting to see different destinations open up. And also within that, unique stays have become more of a desire for a lot of travelers, particularly for the younger market. In fact, 44% of the people that we interviewed as part of the Traveller Value Index report said that they rated finding new experiences as a top motivator for traveling. And so staying in something that's a little bit different is part of that as well. So we're seeing things like tiny houses, yurts, houseboats, all these different sorts of properties popping up and becoming more and more popular. And particularly with the younger market, anything that they can put on Instagram is really, really sought after. So those sorts of opportunities have become available, and just travelers are looking for more of these sorts of things. Um, Another thing that's become clear is that a lot of travelers are looking for something that's going to give them a wellness or a mental health benefit. So it's not just about going on holidays, it's about feeling better when you come back as well, because you've had an experience that's allowed you to relax and refresh and focus on your mental and physical health. So 40% of the travelers that we surveyed in the Traveller Value Index report suggested that physical or mental health benefit was one of the top motivators for traveling. So there's lots of different things that people do out there. I stayed at a property a few years ago where they'd built a yoga platform that was overlooking fields, and that was really beautiful. And they'd also installed a Japanese Zen garden. So it was this big sand pit where they had a rake and you could go around and create patterns in the sand. And particularly for me at that stage, I had three little kids, so that was very helpful for me to be able to get away from the noise and go and rake sand. It was actually quite cathartic. Um, and the last thing I'll mention here, actually, sorry, two more things, but flexible planning is obviously really important. We've seen since COVID, it's become a much bigger issue. People just don't know when their plans are going to change, for things that are outside of their control. And so they really are looking for properties that offer flexibility, whether that's via a cancellation policy or the ability to move a booking if they need to. And so, especially when it comes to cancellation policy, if you can make your policy more flexible, what we do see is that on average, listings that have made a change to their cancellation policy and made it more flexible, they see an increase of three times of the number of people that actually view their listings and a 10% increase in conversion, which pans out to be about a 30% increase in revenue on average. So that's quite significant, and it shows how important that flexibility has become for travelers. And last thing I'll mention here is just around the influence of reviews. We know how important reviews are, whether you're buying something online or booking your next holiday, and whether we like it or not, reviews have become very important to people when they are shopping. And so we really do have to make an effort to ensure that we're collecting as many reviews as possible. and focusing on providing a really good experience for the traveler so that the review rating is really high because it really does signal trust for future travelers and impacts their decision making. Some of the data that we've looked at around reviews, for example, listings with at least one review are 13 times more likely to get a booking than those with no reviews. Another thing that's really interesting is that 75% of travelers are prepared to pay more for a property that has better reviews. So it's really important that we do spend some time on reviews. That means making sure that you're soliciting reviews from travelers. We do that automatically when a booking comes through our platform, but occasionally the traveler just needs a little bit more of a push. And then also responding to reviews when they have posted a review is really important because, again, it just builds those trust signals for future travelers. It's also a really good source of feedback as well. You'll get really good feedback from your reviews that's super important for you to take on board and then go and address those things, whether it's something wrong with the property or the service or whatever it is. There's always lots of gold that we should be taking out of reviews and really spending and focusing time on managing them.
I definitely relate to that. I'm very review driven when I book any properties. And we recommend on a new book side that you set up an automated communication that goes out post stay to encourage that review. So if there's any new book users, that's something that we can chat about if you don't have that set up already. And I just want to touch on the mental health wellness piece of it because that is something that is quite achievable for properties to add in or accentuate without having to spend money improving their property, especially if you're nature adjacent already. Just, making sure that the guests who are booking are aware that they have access to nature nearby, showing pictures of that is a really great way to enhance your listing without necessarily having to spend money at the property, right? So those are some really, really great points. Perfect. How has the demand for amenities evolved over the last 12 months, and what's likely to matter most moving forward?
There's obviously some key standard ones that travelers are looking for, particularly when they're booking via a platform or a site like Stays or Book About Your Vrbo. They are looking for places that are fully self-contained, and so the base expectations really are air conditioning, Wi-Fi, fully equipped kitchens, fully equipped laundries, and even little touches like having a laundry is great, but do you have pegs? Do you have a clothesline? Even, leaving some washing powder for them so they don't have to go to the shops and buy washing powder. And then when I say fully equipped kitchens, it goes beyond just having the kitchen there, but making sure that, if the property sleeps 10 people, that you have enough glasses and cups and plates and cutlery and everything that is going to equip 10 people to have a meal there. And little things as well like having Glad wrap or foil, um, salt and pepper, olive oil, these sorts of things, and even little plastic takeaway containers because it happens so often when you go and stay at a place, you'll cook there, but then there'll be leftovers, and you don't want to throw the leftovers in the bin. So to have little takeaway containers that people can use is really a nice touch, and that sort of really improves the experience, and again flows through to the reviews like we talked about before. So they're really some of the I guess, key amenities that you want to have. And importantly, make sure that, that when you have these amenities, that you have them ticked off in New Book so that they then flow through on your listings and display to travelers on Stays or whatever site they're booking on. And then also make sure that you check your listings periodically as well to make sure that those features or amenities are actually displaying on your listings as well. And then, taking it a step further, obviously pools, particularly in Australia, are super important. Spas or jacuzzis are really valued, and then outdoor things like having a fire pit or a fireplace, those sorts of amenities are really key. An outdoor dining area, barbecues, people love those sorts of things. And what we're seeing increase in popularity are properties that have electric vehicle charging stations because we're seeing more and more people with electric vehicles. So that's really valuable. Um, Regarding outdoor spaces, just expanding on that, we know when people go on holidays that they love being able to get outside as well. So having a balcony or some sort of outdoor area, whether it's a garden or something like that, spend some time trying to make it as nice as possible with some furniture out there, plants, you know, do some work on the garden, that sort of thing. Even catering for kids, so having toys in the backyard or that sort of thing is really valuable. Um, Entertainment options is another one that's obviously really key for this particular market. And so most TVs these days are smart TVs, but having things like different streaming services preloaded onto the TV that your travelers can access is really valued as well. You know what it's like if you're a parent and you take the kids away somewhere to be able to pop them in front of the TV and put on Netflix for, you know, a brief period whilst you cook dinner or get something organized is really handy. But then going beyond that, if you've got space, we're seeing a lot of properties take up a little bit of room in the property for something like a gaming room. It doesn't have to be expensive, you know, even just some board games, some books. But if you want to take it a step further, we have, you know, lots of properties where they'll have a ping pong table or a pool table, and even gaming consoles like an Xbox or a PlayStation. These things are really standing out to travelers. And again, make sure you're highlighting this in your listing so that travelers know that that's what's available. Um, Next thing that I think has also become really important are safety features. You know, we do get it's not just families traveling. There's a lot of couples and singles traveling as well, and everyone likes to feel safe. And so making sure that you have clear access instructions to your properties, as well as making entryways and exitways well lit. That's really important, and everything that goes into making your travelers feel like they're safe and they're secure within your property. And last thing that I'll talk about here is pet-friendly properties. So in Australia, about almost 70% of properties have at least one pet in their house. Sorry, of households have at least one pet, and so it's a huge market that really has grown, and people treat their pets as part of the family. So the ability for them to be able to take them on holidays with them is really sought after. So have a think about whether your properties can accommodate pets. There's a whole spectrum of whether you want a pet in your property or not. Some properties are fine, you know, if you allow dogs, for example, but they must be outside, that's totally fine. But make sure that you're clear with this in your listings in terms of how it's set up, and then even in your description, be very clear with what the expectations are for travelers if they are going to bring a pet. Um, and then, you know, you can go beyond that as well. And make sure that the property is set up to accommodate a pet. So if you allow dogs, have a kennel in the backyard or have a dog bed, have dog bowls, these sorts of things. Again, when a traveler gets to the property and you've got these little extra touches, it makes them feel really, you know, valued and likely to give you a good review or even potentially come back and stay again with you. Other things to consider as well is, are there walking trails nearby? Are there local beaches where you can let the dog off leash? Are there pet-friendly cafes or pubs in the area? Make sure your travelers are aware of these things via the information that you provide to them, whether it's in your description or wherever you want to do that.
Absolutely. And the pet friendly piece is something we've heard echoed in all of our industry data from other OTAs. Definitely a trend that is not going away. So making sure that that filter is set up correctly on the platform is so important. I just want to touch on the entertainment options. I'm a mom, so that really resonates with me. Any games and toys that you can leave. It usually doesn't have to be, again, an expensive operation to set up some more entertainment options in the property, but if you're near the beach, having some beach toys, it makes such a big difference. And those can really generate those great reviews and referrals as well. Are you seeing any shifts in the types of trips people are taking, such as when, how long, and how often they travel?
We have seen some. Our core market really is the midweek, sorry, the 2 to 3 day weekend getaways, generally not too far away from the major, re, you know, metro areas around, especially around Australia. So that's, you know, really where most of our bookings come from. But there are more and more what we refer to as extended getaways, particularly with people who are able to work either remotely or have a hybrid work setup. We're seeing a lot more people going on holidays and combining their holiday with work. And so this is something to be really considerate of and have a think about the sort of bookings that you've been receiving or what you potentially might want to target. And so, for example, we're seeing a lot of properties that will make space within the house or within the property for a desk, a nice comfy office chair, high-speed Wi-Fi so they can take video calls, even places where they're putting printers in so people can actually work completely remotely for a period of time. So that's really valuable. And again, if you do that, you really want to highlight this, call it out, whether you want to put it in your property headline, at least in the description, and make sure you've got photos of that space as well. And then I guess something that's always been a bit of an issue, but becoming more of an opportunity are those gaps that we see between the weekends. So your midweek travelers, where often occupancy is a little bit lower, and you want to try and target travelers that are looking for a little bit more value, or they're trying to avoid the weekend crowds. And so how you set up your pricing is really important here. Um, have a look at, what else is available in the market, but make sure that you're competitively priced and you're offering value that is going to attract people to want to come and stay from Monday to Thursday, for example. And then lastly, one of the sort of, I guess, growing trends that we're seeing is people booking last minute. So they have that shorter booking window, making, I guess, more spontaneous decisions to go, okay, I'm going to go away this week in 2 days' time, for example. And so it's really important that you've got your availability up to date, that your pricing is accurate, and so that if someone does book last minute, you're able to quickly and easily accept those bookings. And even things like having last minute discounts set up really helps. And so again, if you have a last minute discount, make sure that the traveler knows that when they're looking on a site like Stays, and so promote that as much as you can.
Absolutely. And, just coming off of that, if there are any questions about dynamic pricing, pushing rates across into VRBO, or sorry, Vrbo, please let me know, or you can get in touch with a customer success manager at NewBook, and we can help you make sure that your pricing is optimized for things like midweek travel and shorter booking windows. So great tips again. With mobile usage increasing and booking windows shrinking, what strategies should operators consider to stay competitive?
I think one of the most important exercises that you can do is to grab your mobile phone, jump onto Stays, and do a search for the area where you have your properties listed. And it's a really good opportunity for you to review and assess how you've listed your properties and compare them to how your competitors have listed their properties. A good example is we often see, really beautiful photos that look great on a desktop when they're a larger size, but when they're shrunk down to a mobile device, you don't quite get the same impact. So it's a really good exercise. Go through, have a look at your listings. How do they look on a mobile phone? Um, Also, your descriptions are really important as well. But if a description, a really long paragraphs with loads and loads of information, when you're on a mobile device and you've got to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, people don't bother to do that. So have a think about whether that's optimized for a mobile device as well, and maybe use bullet points or just reduce it and stick to, some of the key points using AI and chat GPT for something like this is really good. So if you've got a really long description, pop it in there and ask it to summarize it to the key points for you, and that can be really handy. But like I said, I think the important thing to do is to review the way that your listings are set up versus the people that you're competing with, from everything from the quality of the photos, the sort of headline that you use, the information that you provide in the listing itself regarding your description, the policies that you have. So that will be your house rules, your cancellation policy, even your payment schedules, whether you have a refundable damage deposit or not, all of these sorts of things. It's not about being the cheapest, because we don't want this to be a race to the bottom. It's just making sure that you're offering some sort of value to the traveler. Another thing that's really important as far as being competitive, I've mentioned cancellation policies. Having a no refund cancellation policy is a real detractor for a listing. So again, make sure you're comparing that to your competitors, but also having a look at the trends for your particular listings. If you're getting a lot of last minute bookings and you've got a relatively flexible cancellation policy, let's say it allows cancellations up until 2 weeks, but if most of your bookings are coming in with that in that last week, then effectively you're not refundable at all, and that's it's not very appealing to travelers. So have a think about matching up those two things. When are you getting a lot of your bookings? What's your cancellation policy? Um, Next thing I'll sort of focus on is around communication. So making sure that you're providing as much clear, upfront communication to travelers is really important, because what you want and what we want as well is that we're matching the right traveler with your property. The last thing we want is to just give you a whole lot of bookings, but you get the wrong sort of traveler, and it's a bad experience for everyone. So putting your expectations into your house rules, if you don't accept pets, if you don't accept children, if you don't accept parties, whatever it is, make sure that that's super clear in your house rules. And as I said as well, also in your description, you can have a lot of information in there that's really clear about what you expect from the traveler, so that they know if that's the right property for them to book. And what we see, if you can do that, is that the traveler is likely to have a more seamless experience, and out of that, most likely going to leave you a better review, which again leads to, more future bookings, and again, having the right travelers in your properties.
Excellent. Those are some really great tips. Now, in just a few moments, I'm going to give you the opportunity to demo the site and just explain some ranking and filtering options. Before we jump in, though, are there any upcoming features on Vrbo that partners should be aware of or preparing for?
Absolutely. There's a lot in the works where there's never a dull moment here. The first one that we're working on at the moment is upgrading our APIs, and so our APIs are basically the connection from NewBook into our system. So that's what gets all of the photos and the headlines and the descriptions and the policies and everything, and pushes it across from your NewBook system into the Vrbo system. So we're going through a huge upgrade there, and making it a more stable, and a faster connection between the two systems. And it'll give us different functionalities, such as the ability to add a different cancellation policy to different times of the year. So that'll be really handy. There's also a number of new APIs that are available that will add extra functionality. So at the moment, to manage your reviews, you need to come into the Vrbo dashboard, where you can solicit more reviews, you can respond to reviews, and you can rate travelers. There is a reviews API that's available, and that will allow you to just manage all of your reviews from within your new book system. Similarly, for messaging, there is a messaging API that will allow you to do everything from the unified inbox within NewBook, as opposed to having to either come into the Vrbo dashboard to respond to a traveler, or just responding directly via email. And the next sort of exciting one, as far as our connection with the new book system, is a promotions API, which should be available later this year. And the promotions API will allow you to set up last minute early booking, mobile and member only deals. And the important thing is that will all feed through to your stays listings, and whatever discount that you have, it will display to the appropriate traveler on stays with things like strike through pricing. So it really highlights value that you're offering. And then the next thing that we'll start to see come through sometime next year, hopefully, is a different model that what we have now. So right now, if you are connected via any external software system, if you have your new book system connected into Vrbo, when you take a booking, you're taking full payment from the traveler. So the traveler books on stays, they enter their credit card information, but that gets passed through to you, and you charge that money via your payment gateway. So you're handling all the payments. Uh, at some point next year, it will become available to us, and it'll be an option whereby you can have Vrbo collect the money. Uh, and so that's a really good option, for some people really like having control of the funds and being able to take it directly. For other people, they don't want to deal with that, and they'd rather the OTA to do that. So that will become an option. And when we have that, that will open up different functionality for us. For example, we have a broad B2B network through Expedia. So a lot of our inventory is pushed across to websites like Webjet and Flight Centre, Qantas Holidays. There's numerous travel websites all around the world that actually have Expedia Group's inventory. And so if you decide to go down that path with the Vrbo Collect model, then your listings will be published across multiple websites all over the world, and hopefully just give you more exposure and more bookings. Um, in addition to that, it gives us more functionality with our loyalty program, which is still yet to launch in this region. But One Key, it's called, will eventually allow people booking your properties to earn One Key cash that's funded by Expedia Group, and then they can burn that, so they can go and spend that on making more bookings. So it's essentially free money that they're getting, that they'll hopefully be able to book, your properties using.
Amazing. Well, that sounds very exciting. I know New Book is very excited about the unified inbox and promotions API. So, very excited to see that come through, and keep an eye out for some announcements around that in the coming months. Um, so thank you for that. Do you want to go ahead and share your screen and show us the platform?
Absolutely. So why don't I just go onto the Stays website? And so what we want to do here is just give you a little bit of a demo as to what travelers are doing, and I can talk a little bit about how ranking works and how important that is. So let's pretend I'm a traveler, and I want to go to Noosa. I'm going to put my dates in. Let's say I'm going here, here, and I'm going to go with two people, and I search. Um, Generally, what travelers do when they get to this page is they start filtering. Okay, so this is going back to what we talked about before with all of your amenities, all of the different setup for your listings. The more thorough you can be, and you've ticked off all of the boxes, including things like having accurate bed and bath configuration, that's super important. Make sure that's all set up in New Book and double check that it's come through and it is displaying correctly on stays and any of the OTAs that you list with. So there's a good chance that people are going to come in here and they're going to start ticking off things that they want. They can have pets, they might be looking for discounts, they might be looking for instantly bookable properties because it is an option to still be request to book, but most people prefer instant booking. So there's all sorts of things that they're going to come in here and look for and tick off. Um, and that's obviously then going to refine the search results. But for the purpose of this exercise, let's just leave it as it is. And so when travelers get to this page, chances are they're going to start looking at the listings that are closer towards the top of the page. So the aim of the game for you as a host listing with us is to get your properties as far towards the top as possible, preferably on page one, but ideally all the way up here. How they do, or how you do that is it's a number of different things, but essentially what it comes down to is the success of our business relies on a traveler coming to our site and as easily as possible finding the best property for them. So what that means is that we want your listings to convert as high as possible. So for the travelers that actually come in here and they start finding your properties, if they click on one of your listings, we want them to actually be successful with booking and staying at that property and leaving a good review. So we measure the conversion rate on every single listing, and that's probably the key factor when it comes to getting your properties to the top of search. So you think, okay, well, that's great. What influences conversion? And really, it's everything. So if I just take this listing, for example, actually, if I start, say on the search page, the things that stand out, first of all, your hero image. So this is your first photo. That needs to be the photo that I guess sells the best part of that particular property. Next thing they're going to look at is the property headline, and it's your opportunity again to really highlight what's the key selling point of that particular property. Then they're also going to look at how many reviews you've got, your average review rating. They're going to look at the price. Is that competitive with other properties? There's a little bit of information at this stage that you want to really try and hook them with. So think about the sort of photos that you've got. Are you using your hero image that really highlights the best point of your, or the best part of your house? Is your headline really attracting attention? But let's say I do click on this particular listing. Once they're in here, the first thing they're going to do is look at your photos. So again, if you don't have really high quality, professionally taken photos, that's the first thing you should probably go away and organize, because gone are the days where travelers are going to bother looking at properties that have been taken with a mobile phone or they haven't been professionally taken. And then have a think about the order that your photos are in. You really want, like I said, the key selling point of a property to be your hero image. And then from there, think about what the traveler does when they get to your property. They're probably going to walk in the front door, go straight to the main living area. So you want that to be your photos. And then they're going to start branching out and looking at the bedrooms and probably last checking out the bathrooms or laundry or something like that. Um, so try and create the journey via the photo order that you have as well. And the more photos that you have, the better, including things that there are to do in the local area. So if you're close to a beach, if you're close to shops and restaurants, have them in the listing as well. As they work their way through the listing, like I said, your headline is a great opportunity to highlight why someone booked this property. Things like your bedding configuration is super important. You want to make sure that travelers know, okay, cool, there's mum, dad, two kids, and maybe a grandparent coming. Can I accommodate them? Is everyone going to be happy with the beds on the bedrooms that are available in this particular property? Same with the bathrooms. Your description is an opportunity to grab someone's attention and really sell the dream to them. But something like a really long description, sometimes it's too much information and you don't necessarily need to have everything. But what you want to make sure is that in that first line or that first paragraph, you're really grabbing attention. And then as we work through, we've talked about amenities. Your house rules are super important. Your cancellation policy is really valuable, making sure that's as flexible as you can possibly go. And then they start getting into reading through your reviews. So you want to make sure that you've got as many there, you've responded to the reviews, whether they're good or bad. It's really important to respond to them because that helps to build trust with travelers. And then lastly, your pricing and how you set up your pricing. People put all sorts of fees and things in their pricing. Sometimes that goes a little bit overboard. So have a think about, from your perspective, if you were making a booking as a traveler, what's going to appeal to you or not turn you off booking a particular property. So hopefully that gives you some sort of insight into, the things you should be looking for and focusing on that's going to help you improve conversion and therefore move up in sort order.
Absolutely. That was incredible. And if anything, it's inspired me to go on and book a weekend away, maybe somewhere warmer than Adelaide. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just to share some resources for everyone on the chat. So we have Toby's email there, and an email that you can reach out to if you're not on Vrbo yet and want to get started. Oh, sorry, I should probably share it. Can you see that?
Let's come up now.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Now, while I brought that up, thank you again for those amazing resources that you've offered. What are three things you'd want viewers to take away from this webinar, just to sum everything up?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would recommend to everyone is to spend some time periodically reviewing your listings on stays. So jump on, have a look at how they look. Like I said, use your mobile device as well, and make sure that the listings are optimized for mobile as well. Because the share of people that do their research and book on a mobile device has really shifted in recent years. Used to be 50-50, now it's more like 70-30. Um, and so reviewing your properties, making sure that they look great, and as a traveler, that you would actually want to book and you would want to stay at those particular properties. And whilst you're there, compare it to what your competitors are offering. You don't have to be the cheapest, you just want to be offering the best value to a traveler. The next thing I think about is, how you set your properties up for success. And so that's things like creating spaces or creating an experience for the traveler that's going to leave them with a smile on their face. So the things that we talked about, like focusing on, what you've got set up in the garden or out on the balcony, having nice furniture out there. If it gets cold, have an outdoor heater, a barbecue. If you've got room for a fire pit or a fireplace, these sorts of touches are really, really nice and really help to improve the experience for the traveler. Things like the games room, kids love that. And if kids are happy, parents are generally happy. And also, those remote working spaces as well, depending on where your property is and what type of property it is and the sort of traveler that you're trying to target. Have a think about these little extra things that you can do. As I said, doesn't need to cost the world. I'm not saying go and build a swimming pool in the backyard and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, but have a think about how you can add these little touches. And the last thing I would recommend is to spend time with your account managers, whether that's at your Vrbo account manager, your New Book account manager, or any of the other online travel agencies that you list with. Take some time to work with them. They have access to loads and loads of data and information that will give you insight into the sort of opportunities that you might be missing out on. And they're the ones that are really going to help you. It's their job to make sure that you're optimized to get as many bookings as possible. So make time for them, get to know them. And they can also, occasionally help to get your properties listed in different marketing campaigns. So that's, you know, another key tip, I think.
Amazing. We have a few minutes left, so I'll open it up now to the participants. If there's any questions, if you want to just go ahead and pop them into the chat. There was a question earlier about whether this will be recorded, and absolutely, this session has been recorded. We'll be posting it to our YouTube and knowledge base very soon. But any other questions from the group?
If there's anything specific to your types of properties or where you are, and you want to reach out to me directly, please email me. My email address is on the screen there.
Yeah, and definitely lean on new book customer success as well. We're always happy to help if it's on the new book side. Um, So either way. Thanks, Brooke. Thank you, Christine. It sounds like not too many questions from the group, so we've done a good job of sharing the information, Toby. They've let us off the hook. So thank you to everyone who was able to join. Dolores says she'll be hoping to have their Vrbo listings up soon. So
Fantastic.
definitely lean on Toby to help with that if you have any questions. Thank you, Anna. All right, thank you again. I'm off to book my next holiday. Appreciate your time today, Toby, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks for hosting, and thanks everyone for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
All right, bye now.